When you're at Major League Baseball, everyone wants to win. Mm-hmm. What do you do with that? How do you turn that into incredible preparation? Let's actually start with...
I'm Dr. Kristen Holmes. Marius Aleksa is a mental skills coach for the Miami Marlins, teaching players how to turn pressure into performance. And today, he's sharing how anyone can use those same tactics.
Baseball, it is a game of failure because as you go to the highest levels of performance, that stuff matters more and more. It's more consequential, and you probably have to let go. The fact that these guys are able to show up every day and deal with that failure and still put their best foot forward is incredible. That's why you've seen such a high adoption of mental skills work, mental skills coaches. This process is the best way to put yourself in a position to get to those results.
How do you actually ground a player to the process?
I get frustrated sometimes when the trust the process is thrown about.
It's never that simple.
To me, it's how do you bring mental performance side to the physical side of things? What becomes apparent is that
this is just mind-blowing to me.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I love that. Could you do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button below? It's completely free and helps us bring you more episodes of Science and Soul. Now on with the episode. Marius, Aleksa.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You have had a really cool career that has spanned intercollegiate athletics, U.S. Army, and now you are the mental skills coach for the Miami Marlins baseball team.
What a ride.
I know. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
If someone were to ask you,
yeah,
what is a mental skills coach? How would you answer that?
Right now, I would say that as a mental skills coach with our team, my job is to be a resource to players and staff so that they can perform at their best on the field. And I'm going to use all the knowledge that I have of the mental performance field to help them apply those concepts in whatever unique way that it looks like for them and their experience on the field so that they feel like they're getting the best out of themselves every single day. And that's with both players and staff and the coaches.
So do players opt in to seeing you, or are they required to meet with you? How does that work?
They're not required. And I wanted it that way. I knew my work would be most effective if they had that autonomy. They can choose. We've had conversations as a team that when you're at Major League Baseball, everyone wants to win. No one is there that doesn't have that high internal drive, that motivation to succeed. It's what do you do with that? How do you turn that into incredible preparation? How do you turn that into having a bulletproof process that puts you in a position to succeed, to get the results that you want? And so, especially with people's concept of mental performance work, like if we talk about my buddy, he had that initial resistance, right? And if I just forced him to work with me, or if I just try to force these concepts or tools, it would not go well.
Right.
It wouldn't go well for him because he probably wouldn't believe in the stuff that he was doing. We wouldn't have that relationship based off of trust that could lead to really good accountability, really good coaching. And so it's really important for me that the players and staff can come to me on their own. From my side, it's really important that I create the conditions, create the environment that they know I can go to Marius for this, or this is what I can get from Marius, or, I have a relationship with Marius, and so it's very comfortable for me to come to him and ask him for something, or, approach him about a problem that I'm working on. That's my responsibility. But in terms of them actually working with me, that's their choice. And I want it that way.
Major League Baseball has invested a lot in
Yes.
mental skills coaching. I mean, there's been just like a steady increase in teams who
Yes.
are adopting, I think, this resource for players. And I mean, Major League Baseball is really unique.
Yes.
There's this one feature about baseball that makes it unique. I think you know, I know you know what it is. I'd love for you to talk about it. And then maybe if we can help listeners understand, how does this actually apply to my life as well?
Yes.
You know, because I think there's a lot of important connections there
Yeah.
to make.
Are you talking about the high rate of failure
Yes.
that they deal with every single
I
day?
mean, this is just mind-blowing to me.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the fact that our
I
players...
mean, it's a game of failure.
It is a game of failure. And I think that's why you've seen such a high adoption of mental skills work, mental skills coaches, because it is that game of failure.
Yeah.
You go 1 for 4 on a day, and that one is a double. That's a really good day.
Yeah.
But you failed 3 other times. And it's not unusual to go a couple days where you don't get a hit. And you're showing up every single day. You've got fans either cheering you or booing you. You're trying to stay consistent with the work when you're getting very different feedback.
Yeah.
And so the fact that these guys are able to show up every day and deal with that failure and still put their best foot forward is incredible. Like, I have so much respect for our players and coaches because of what they deal with on a consistent basis. I think the way that can apply to people outside of baseball is understanding that this failure, we all deal with it. We're all going to encounter that failure. What processes and what systems do you have in place to help you not just deal with that failure, but especially learn from it and navigate it in a way that can keep that momentum going forward? And so just like in most sports, but we talk about in baseball so much of the process. Why is it so important to trust the process? With our
That gets
athletes,
thrown around a lot,
yes.
by the way. So,
Yes, it does.
And there's very few, I think, organizations that really have the process dialed in a way that there's buy-in around the process. I mean, people, you get so focused on outcomes, like really quickly, I think, in professional organizations for a lot of reasons, right? There's a lot of money, there's a lot of investment. How do you actually ground an organization and a player to the process? To me, that is one of the greatest opportunities in Major League sports that no one has really quite figured out, which is why teams don't consistently win and perform.
To me, I get frustrated sometimes when the trust the process is thrown about, because a lot of it comes down to how have you defined the process? Is the process something that's intentional? Is it something that's clear? Is it something that's defined? If it's just a word that you toss around where, hey, I'm going through a difficult time, and I just tell you, trust the process.
Yeah.
That can be so frustrating.
Totally.
But if for you, the process is actually these 5 steps that I do every single day because I know that puts me in the best position to achieve the outcomes that I want, then that's something you can actually trust. And that's something that you can adjust and adapt, right? Oh, okay, so I've been following these 5 steps for 10 games. I'm not quite getting the results. Let me look at those 5 steps. Maybe I need to adjust step number 4.
So you're constantly looking at the data in parallel
Yes.
to understand what parts of that process
Yes.
are kind of working for you or not.
Yes.
And then having the flexibility to adjust.
Yes. The one place I would maybe push back slightly is the constantly. So one of the things that I've worked on with players and coaches is giving yourself some runway.
Yeah.
Because so if I have my process and it helps me, or the purpose of it is to put me in a position to succeed, right? And then a player goes up and has one bad at bat. If they are in that mode of constantly checking their process, there's a lot of negative emotions that come along with not achieving the result that they've worked so hard to achieve. And so the temptation then is to say, I need to adjust that process. Well, what if then you went to your next at-bat? If you held your process the same and you went to that next at-bat and you got a hit. And then on the third at-bat, you also got a hit. But because you didn't achieve that result in the first one, all of a sudden you have this feeling of, I need to change stuff. So I'm a big proponent of clearly defining when you want to reevaluate for these players so that they can navigate those ups and downs of the game. So one player that I have, he will look at his at-bats in a sample size of 10. So he always gives himself 10 at-bats before he'll kind of sit down and do a deep dive of what's going on. I think that's brilliant. Maybe it's a series. Maybe you give yourself 3 games and say, okay, at the end of the 3 games, I'm going to sit down and take a look at how things are going. And you might be at not the best spot after those 3 games, but it's not going to be a reaction. It's not going to be a reaction based off of your emotions. It's not going to be a reaction simply based off of the results that you're getting. It's going to be a more objective point of view that you're bringing to your evaluation of that process. But again, it's something that's clear. It's something that's intentional. It's something that's defined.
We were talking about Tiny Experiments,
Yes.
book by Andor LeCunff. And it's such a brilliant book. And it mirrors a lot of what you say in terms
Yes.
of like kind of creating these almost mini experiments,
Yes.
giving yourself like, 10 opportunities to then reevaluate. And she kind of says the same thing. It's like, give yourself a defined period of time where you experiment and you give yourself grace to succeed, to fail. And then you have enough data to then objectively say, this is working for me.
Yes.
It's such a great way, I think, for all humans to think about health and performance. And, and it kind of takes the pressure off. It actually allows you to actually engage in the process because you're kind of coming at it from this like experimental,
Yes.
curious kind of mindset.
I was just going to say that element of curiosity.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
It feels like playful even when you say it.
Yes.
Do the guys buy into that?
They do. It's so
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And I think that's
Psychos.
great to
Yeah.
Well, but that's so great to understand, like the pressure, right? The pressure they put on themselves.
Yeah.
The pressure of they're trying to make a career. They're trying to make a living off of these results. They're judged by the results. They know they are. They know that when it comes down to continuing their career or how much money they make, it is based off of results. It's a result-based business.
Outcomes matter.
So, of course, your mind is going to go towards those things. And that's why we work so hard on defining a process or readjusting our focus and all those things. But when you're able to have this mindset of curiosity, I think it helps manage that pressure. It helps create some space between the reactions that you're going to have of a good result or a bad result. It suspends that judgment enough for you to continue doing the best job that you can, right? So if you can have this, like you said, playful element of curiosity, if you can bring some of that even during a game, instead of a bad outcome happens and you're beating yourself up from a good place, right? Because you want to do well, you want to help the team win, but you bring that element of curiosity of, I'm curious why that happened. What can I learn from that one at bat that I can now apply to the next one? Then it helps put you in that position where you're going to stay present in the moment and continue to apply yourself in a way that hopefully gets you to the outcomes that you want, right? And that's the conversation that we often have. It's like the results matter. They truly matter, and when we need to find ways to get there. But that's why we talk about the process, because it's the best way to put yourself in a position to get to those results.
Do you find that the guys who are doing really, really well are like, you won't see them it's not until they really start to struggle that all of a sudden they're kind of popping into the office or they're sitting next to you on the bench.
Yeah.
What's kind of the culture around how they think about your role and how they use you?
Yes.
Because it's kind of a culture, right? Like
it is a culture, and that's something that I try to work on a daily basis to feed that culture of being proactive with this work. And one thing I so admire about the group that we have of both coaches and players is that they've fully embraced this process of learning. I think typically with a lot of kind of the mental performance work, but even in some other spaces, that's the easiest path. Things aren't going well, so I need to fix it. Yes, you definitely need to work on it and maybe make some changes and things like that. But that attitude of, oh, things are going well, so let me not touch anything and leave it alone. And hopefully it continues. And the one thing we know about baseball, just as probably in life, is that it'll never just continue to be that great, right? Yeah. There's going to be ups and downs.
The Reapers is around the corner.
Yes, it is around the corner. And hopefully we don't have that, that feeling that something is going to just drop down too much, because that can obviously impact you.
Right.
But what this group has done a really, really nice job of is when things are going well, they not just want to learn about what's going well so that they can continue doing that, but also how can I continue to elevate? Not accepting like this is the best that I can do. Yeah. They want to push that limit, push against their potential to see what else can I achieve. Right. And I also admire the fact that they've embraced the idea that success leaves clues. And by digging into and examining the success that they have, it can help them become more consistent.
Right. Repeat that.
Yes. Yeah. If you just leave that alone, and then maybe performance drops off a little bit because of the natural up and down, do you know how to get back to that? Are you aware of what was bringing you success? That's why we want to dig into that, so that the next time you need to maybe climb out of a bit of a hole or performance dips, you have that direction. You have that clarity of this is where I'm trying to go, as opposed to just kind of crossing those fingers and saying, hopefully it goes well. Yeah. And it's easy to forget the things that you're doing. You might have this 2-week stretch where you're doing so well. And our guys have embraced, I'm going to learn about that. I'm going to dive into it. I'm going to see why those things are going well so that I could continue applying those principles moving forward.
What's the sweet spot between, this intentionality that you're getting at and this kind of self-awareness, this kind of examination of success and failure versus just like the free-flowing, how do you kind of think about bridging that gap in a way that gets the player into that sweet spot of performance?
Yeah.
Because you can overthink too and
100%.
Over-examine maybe, and every player is probably different.
Every player is probably different. I think it comes down to timing. Examine your timing. See where the examination and the awareness is beneficial to you, and then also pay attention to where it might get in the way. So with baseball, the timing kind of lends itself. Before the game starts is a great time to be working on your skills, examining them, being aware of what's going well, what's not going well, what you want to change. But once you step onto the field, if you step on the mound, on the batter's box, that's the time to trust the work that you've put in, trust your skills, abilities, and be as present as possible and let all that work come through. Now, within that, there's even more nuance, right? So let's take a hitter, for example, getting ready for the game. They might not want to be working on something 30 minutes prior to the game. It's not game time yet, but even 30 minutes prior to the game, they might want to be at a point where they're just working their normal routine. And the process is, this is preparation for the game. This is preparation to put me in the best state to walk up to that first at bat and, achieve what I want to achieve. One of our players has a routine for himself where in the early part of the day, he actually, back to our point of the tiny experiments and curiosity and playfulness, he considers it play. He'll do hitting work, and it's playtime for him. And the reason why he does that is so that he can walk away from that time. And if it didn't go well, whatever change that he was trying to make, he's good. I was just playing.
Yeah.
I was just trying out different things, right? And then he comes back to the cage later in the day, right before game time, and it's no longer playtime. Now it's very intentional about this is getting my feels right. This is putting myself in a position so that I'm ready to play. And it's much more routine, maybe not as much challenge as that first part of the day, but that's intentional. He knows what he wants to get out of that process so that by the time he steps onto the field, he's present, he's trusting his work, and he's created that separation from that early trial and error time. And when he explained that to me, I was like, that's brilliant. That's better than anything I could have coached you up on.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
He figured that out himself.
I love that. And I think about, when you just apply that principle to like the general population, like oftentimes like we're always in this performance mode where we don't actually create space for ourselves to have that pregame play moment.
Yeah.
That I think is actually super useful for every human.
Yeah.
To kind of think about their day and like, when am I actually just experimenting, playing, like, in this kind of looser moment where, I'm just, let's say I'm preparing for a presentation to the board and I'm just going to like let it rip. Like, what would that actually look like? And you're kind of having fun and you're experimenting. And, I think we don't necessarily carve out space for ourselves, in that regard. And I love that this player kind of figured out that that's what he needed to perform, understanding every person's different. But
it's saying, okay, here's an area. So let's talk about someone presenting for work, right? You're so overloaded with tasks that really all you can do is prepare for that particular presentation and then deliver that presentation. And then usually you're on to the next thing and just moving on so quickly, right? But it can be as simple as carve out 5 minutes after you give that presentation and sit down with a notebook and ask yourself what went well.
Yeah.
So those are things that you want to repeat in the future or want to be more consistent with. What didn't go so well? And you got to be really honest with yourself, and it can be tough, but those are things that you probably want to work on. And then what would I do differently next time? So you're already starting to create a plan. So even if you don't have too much time, by just taking 5 minutes and jotting that stuff down, now the next time you give that presentation, you're putting yourself in a position to actually have a process of getting better. Now, ideally, you now set aside some playtime and you give that presentation to different people or you try out different methods, but I know that's not always possible.
And I think this is where Gen Pop can learn from sports, because there's never a game where we're not doing an after-action review, which is what you just outlined, right? Like you are intentionally sitting down and thinking about what worked, what didn't, and then how am I moving forward tomorrow based on this information that I just learned. Yeah. And I, as an athlete and as someone who's coached for years and years, like has worked with military, like the after-action review, like this is just what we do. And I do that in my own work, today. And I think you can accelerate your growth and your wisdom as an individual in ways that are just really powerful by incorporating this one very simple strategy of an AAR.
Yes.
Yeah?
I couldn't agree more in terms of the accelerating the growth, because now you're not leaving it to chance.
Right.
So even if I give that presentation and I just sit down in my car and think through those questions, that's still a good step.
Yeah.
But by writing it down, you're almost creating some accountability for yourself. You're almost creating this plan, and you're less likely to forget about it, right? We mentioned overthinking earlier in the conversation. I think that's another massive component of this. So instead of walking away from that conversation, the presentation, and thinking about all these different areas or what happened, what didn't happen, by creating that actual plan, you're now focusing the mind on something specific. So it's now no longer just floating around there,
Right.
grabbing onto whatever.
Yeah.
You know, this coworker looked at me a little differently, or like, you know, I misspoke or said this word. You now gave yourself something specific and tangible to focus on. And so even if your mind does wander, you can bring it back to whatever you got from that AAR. And so again, it brings that sort of intentionality, brings that focus. And I think that's another part of that growth.
You can apply this to relationships,
Yeah.
to really to anything, you know, a skill that you're trying to learn.
Yes.
And I think that to me, this is one of the more powerful tools people can adopt in life in general, because to your point, like it reduces future rumination. Like you're not making up stories
Yeah.
about what happened, right?
Yeah.
Because as you get further from the event, if you haven't like put closure to that event, you end up kind of carrying it through your day. And then it's the thing you think about before you go to bed. And it's the thing that wakes you up at 2 a.m.
Yes.
So like just have a little, you know, kind of create the closure.
I don't think I'm making this up. I think there's a phrase like clarity is kindness.
Yes,
I think clarity is performance enhancing.
for sure.
So I had a really interesting discussion with one of my athletes, and what came out of that conversation was that when he has clarity about what he might have done wrong in a performance, he'll have those negative emotions. He might be disappointed. He might be frustrated, but he feels okay.
Yeah.
Like he knows he can continue moving forward because he has clarity on what he wants to do the next time he goes out there. For him, what he voiced was the most difficult is when he doesn't know. He doesn't have that clarity. He doesn't have that certainty about what went wrong or what he might want to do differently. And so the takeaway there is, as much as you can, create that clarity. Find that clarity for yourself so that you can apply those things and enhance your performance moving forward. But it's funny because I believe the clarity is kindness comes from like communication and relationships and things like that. But it's like, no, apply that to your skills. Apply that to your work.
Yeah.
Apply that to the development that you're trying to have. And examine those things so you can create as much clarity as possible.
I think it opens the door for compassion toward the self, kindness
Yes.
toward the self. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you're not left kind of in this milieu where you're trying to figure out what in the hell happened. You know,
Yeah.
like you're kind of bringing that to ground in a way that you can internalize it in an adaptive
Yes.
kind of way, in a performance enhancing
Yeah.
way.
And a lot of the conversations we have with players is like you kind of mentioned that beating yourself up aspect of performance that happens. And that comes along with the territory of having high expectations of yourself.
It's not, it's like just you have a standard. You care.
You have a standard.
It's
You
what
care.
matters.
So we love that you care. Now, are we funneling that into productive action?
Right.
Or counterproductive action? Because sometimes with the athletes I've worked with, beating themselves up a little bit, not too much, but a little bit, can be productive. So we don't want to avoid that just because it's negative self-talk or negative emotions. If it's productive, if it's sustainable and moving you in the right direction, then that's okay. But where we really want to focus on is the counterproductive. Is that bringing you down? Is the fact that you're beating yourself up now getting in the way of you performing your best? And if it is, now we want to do something about that. We want to address that to make sure that you're not becoming that obstacle for yourself.
Yeah. So I want to talk through just the various tools that you use, understanding, of course, that not all these tools apply to every player or coach or staff, you know, that member that you're working with. But a lot of the competitive advantage for an athlete happens in their downtime when they're away from the field. And a lot of that is, of course, is thinking about sleep and recovery and, the food that you're putting in your body, how you're managing relationships, boundaries that you're creating. There's like a whole host of things that are happening when you're not at the field that are going to impact your capacity to play or even get close to your potential in that game.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a whole kind of podcast of itself, know, but I think that there's a huge competitive advantage to be had. So I wonder in what way kind of mental skills enters kind of that conversation, and how are players really thinking about, all right, how can I use this downtime?
I think from a mental skills standpoint, when we're talking about that downtime, that time away from the field, I think of mindset. I think of confidence building, maybe focus too, right? And that, I think, illuminates how I approach my work, where I take these different concepts and mix them up in a way that is applicable to that particular situation. But I think of one of our players who's found success in separating his identity as a human being first, and then a player in his mind second. And again, this might not work for everyone, but he needed to create that separation. And so off of the field, it's how do I invest myself as a human being, as a husband, maybe as a father, as a brother, as a son, and investing in those things. And so where I might come in is, again, creating a process. Well, what's that process of building that relationship with your wife? Or what's that process of making sure you set aside time to invest in those different identities or things like that? And it's so important because of the amount of pressure that they feel as athletes, the pressure that they put on themselves, the expectations that they have for themselves, to create that separation in that downtime, so they're not constantly thinking about that performance, right? Which can be really hard to do when you've had a tough performance. It's really hard not to bring that home. But to your point, from a physical recovery standpoint, if you're not creating some sort of separation and you're just wearing yourself out mentally, and then you're stepping back in that same environment the next day and trying to have success again, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be not just physically exhausted, but also mentally exhausted. So
permission to just kind of let go of the game and just focus on the other things in your life that matters.
Yes.
Creates probably a really good balance for the players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having those reminders that this isn't everything.
Yeah. It's okay.
It's okay. And
yeah.
It's so interesting because as you go to the highest levels of performance, that stuff matters more and more. It's more consequential, and you probably have to let go.
Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah.
Right? So the higher you go, the more you have to find ways to let go, despite everything pushing you in the direction of care more about this, focus more on this, do more on this. And fighting those pressures and finding a way to kind of step back and let go. And it's a process that they have to continuously engage in.
It's almost like you have to care a little less.
Yes.
And I say that really because I know that would scare people, but in some ways, like I think probably that the athletes that I've spoken to who really have long careers do have that really beautiful separation between what happens in their sport and during their craft and at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's really how you create a sustainable level of performance.
Yeah.
Is being clear on those roles. How do I care about myself, or what do I value inside these roles as a dad, as a son, as a spouse? Like, what do I value and how do I live those values?
Yeah.
And being clear on that is obviously going to make you way more effective when you step, onto the field.
I think being clear on that purpose, clear on that values that you have, can help so much. Yeah. I think it's interesting because even as you were saying, you need to care a little less. Like you felt that resistance
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it like scares you to say it.
Yeah.
And the conversations we have about that is it feels like caring less. It can look like caring less. It's usually not. It's usually a redirection of that deep care, that deep passion that you have.
Well said.
The reason why that can be so difficult is because the guys that I work with have gone to the point where they're at because they care so much.
Right.
But if that care is misplaced, if you care about what the fans say, if you care about even what family says, if you care about, what the coaches are thinking, that can pull you away from the things that got you there in the first place or pull you away from the things that you do best. Yeah. And so for me, when we start talking about I care too much, I'm like, no, I love the fact that you care so much. How can we redirect that care into the things that are within your control? So usually the process that is clear, is intentional, is defined. How can we make sure that we are placing that care there as opposed to the results that you don't have full control over or things like that? And so it's embracing that and then having them realize like, no, how much you care is almost a superpower that you have.
Yeah.
But if it's not used correctly,
right, it can drain your life force.
It can get in the way, right? And that's a difficult conversation, especially when they feel like this is a good thing.
Yeah,
it's like it is.
You're wired to care.
Yes, you're wired to care, and you're here because you care so much.
Right.
But let's channel that. Let's funnel that in a way that's helping you, not hurting you.
I love that. And I think it's the same corollary of like, being able to separate, I have, really long work days generally, and then I want to like go home and I want to be present with, for my kids. And, so it's really thinking about, all right, how do I kind of create that separation, you know, and be able to give my family my full attention, after I leave work. And I think a lot of folks really struggle with that.
Yes.
So how do you have some techniques that help the guys kind of switch from this kind of baseball, high stakes, high stress kind of role into, all right, I'm in family mode.
Yeah.
What are the techniques that you recommend?
I think the AAR is a great place to start. So I know now we're kind of working backwards through that performance timeline. But having that AAR with yourself so that it's putting a bow on the end of your day.
Yeah. Where lets you go into the downtime.
Yes.
Yeah.
It lets you go into the downtime and focus your mind on that downtime because I've created a plan. And when I step back into that performance arena tomorrow, I can reference that plan. I can assure myself that I know what I'm going to do tomorrow, or I know how I'm going to approach tomorrow. I know what my plan is for tomorrow. And so now I can focus on my spouse, my kids, my hobbies, whatever it is. Now that AAR might look different. Maybe it's you journaling, taking out that notebook, jotting the stuff down. Maybe it's you having a conversation with a coworker. Because one of the things I encourage our athletes is like, if you need to create that separation, maybe that's a conversation with a coach and gaining that clarity on what you want to work on the next day, or breaking down your performance. And then you can also still take notes. Another thing is just having a routine or a process to create that separation. So I know these days it's said a lot, like having a wind down routine or a sleep routine, and you can apply that concept to the separation of kind of work and home. Like some guys will stay in their uniform for quite some time after the game, and it's an intentional choice because they're still processing maybe the emotions of the game. And then once they make that decision to take off that uniform, you're ending your workday.
Wow, I love that.
And so
that's really
now
powerful.
It is, and
such a powerful cue.
It's a physical cue, right? And I think that's a big takeaway is what physical cues can you attach to the mental things that you're trying to do, right? So if you're mentally trying to give yourself a bit of that separation, what physical things can you attach to that help represent that separation that you're trying to make?
Amazing.
And so when I first got into baseball, it was interesting. Like, I'd see these guys kind of sitting around or being in front of their locker for a really long time, and just kind of curious about why. And I asked the player, and that's what he shared. And I was like, that's brilliant. You know, you're taking your time, you're processing what you need to process, and then when you're ready, you make that switch. And I think that's something everyone can apply in some way, shape, or form.
I think too, like using that commute time, whatever it might be, as a way to like, I'll do like some just loving kindness meditation, or, just like kind of reflect on my values. Like, it just allows me, like, once I open the door, that's kind of it's like, I've let everything go, and I'm mom now,
Yes.
and and I feel like I can just like enter into that role in a really clear head,
what stands out to me is that whether you know it or not, you have a process of creating that separation, right? And so if I was coaching you, I would
and that's because I've had a lot of failures in those moments.
You're learning from them, right? But what I would ask is, okay, if we had to boil this down to a couple steps, what is your process before you step into your house, right? And so just like the routines that a guy might have during a timeout of an at-bat, where they pause, take a deep breath, give themselves a cue to remind themselves where they want their focus to be, you can do that in your car
100%.
Before you step into your home. You can pause, take a deep breath, have a cue, and then open up that door and go through. And it's bringing that focus, it's bringing that intentionality to that moment, as opposed to just walking in through that door and hoping for the best.
Might be even, you get in, you take off your shoes, you put on your slippers, like I always have like, I'm going to change my clothes when I get home, that's like a cue. All right.
That's you taking your uniform off.
Yeah.
And, switching into that home mode.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. All right. So let's talk a little bit about pregame.
Yeah.
Are there a couple things that feel like that stick in your mind that really work for guys to get kind of mentally, whether or not they play well, that's not really the point, but just that feeling like I'm ready?
It's a lot of the things that we've kind of talked about already, maybe just applied in different ways. There's a significant technical aspect to baseball, right? So hitting is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Throwing a pitch at 97 miles per hour with different shapes and is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, so technical.
And so to me, it's how do you bring just the mental side to the physical aspects that you're already doing, right? So, hitters will be in the cage before the game. They'll go out on the field and stretch. Pitchers will be throwing a bullpen. And so they're so used to the physical side of things. They've done it their whole life. Often where there's maybe some room to grow is attaching some mental aspects to that. So things that a lot of people do, they involve their breathing. They involve cues so that they're focused. There might be some of moments of grounding and being present. Moments of prayer, mindfulness, things like that. But a lot of it is, what are the steps that I need to take to put myself in that trusting mindset so that when it's time for performance, I'm trusting all the incredible hard work that they've done so that they can be present and just almost let themselves react, right? Because that's why they've trained so hard.
Yeah.
Not to second guess. Yes. Yes. And and to what we spoke about before, sometimes there's too much awareness.
Yeah.
Right? And so in those moments of high performance, high stress, you want to tap into that automation. You want to tap into kind of those habits that you've worked so hard to apply. So whatever combination of things that you need to bring into, I think of it as a ramp up, right? That ramp you up to that moment of trusting yourself as much as you can on that day. Maybe there's a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit of nerves. Completely normal.
Yeah.
But if you have 75% to give that day, what are you doing to ramp up to give that full 75% on that day?
You know those very rare products that quietly become essential to you? At first, you don't even realize you need them, but then you start using them and realize just how much they're actually doing. Well, this has happened to me recently with my sponsor, Bond Charge, and their red light face mask. I've been using it consistently for the past 5 months, and the difference is so real. My skin genuinely looks brighter and it feels more elastic, and I've noticed an improvement in my overall skin tone and appearance, especially on days when I'm coming off heavy travel or short sleep. This mask uses red and near-infrared light to stimulate collagen and cellular repair. I only wear it for 10 to 15 minutes, but that is plenty to give me all the benefits. Because it's hands-free, I can wear it while I'm working or reading, even if I'm prepping for the following day. For me, this mask has become a ritual that signals that it's time to wind down and recover. If you're curious and want to try it for yourself, head to bondcharge.com/Kristen and use code Kristen for 15% off. Discount applies site-wide. You'll also get free shipping and a 1-year warranty. Head to bondcharge.com now. If there's one thing I've just been reminded of when launching Science and Soul, it's that whenever you're starting something new, you've got to be prepared to wear a few different hats. Whether you're building a brand, launching a podcast, or bringing your side hustle to life, unless you've got a team behind the scenes, you're it. You're the engine, the creative, the strategy, the execution, which leads me to today's sponsor, Shopify. Shopify is a tool that not only helps you get started, but wears a lot of those hats for you. It's your design studio where you can browse templates and customize them to your brand's aesthetic. Your content creator, writing product descriptions, page headlines, and thanks to AI, can actually enhance your product photos. And of course, it's your commerce expert, managing things like inventory, international shipping, returns, and so much more. If you're ready to sell, head to shopify.co.uk/Kristen to start your $1 per month trial. That's shopify.co.uk/Kristen.
So routines versus superstitions.
Yeah. Great conversation for baseball.
I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because of how much we've talked about process and routines.
Yeah. And I think it is the reason why. There's a reason why there's routines and superstitions, because of people are just trying to create some control in this chaotic, uncontrollable game that you can't control.
I think, we all joke about I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. And there's a fun aspect to it. From a very serious mental performance side, the way that I look at is if you start attributing your success or your results to something that you're doing in a routine, or that you put your socks on this particular way, or you did things in this order, if that's what you're attributing your success to, that's dangerous because you're giving away your control, you're giving away your power, you're giving away your hard work to these things, right? And the danger is if I didn't do these things,
it's my Nike sock. It's not the work that I put in.
Yes. And now you're putting yourself in a not great headspace, or you're even limiting yourself because you're like, I didn't do these things. No, you've worked so hard to be able to achieve great things, even when you're not feeling your best, even when you might not think you're in your best position, you can still make that happen. And so if you feel like you're giving away that power, that's the time to kind of reevaluate that routine, that process, to make sure that you're not holding on to that too tightly. You're not giving that power away.
Do you try to redirect athletes who seem to are really high on kind of the superstitious kind of scale?
Yeah.
Or do you kind of let them just do their thing? Because that's that's like tricky, right?
It is very tricky.
Because they're a 25-man roster. Like they're good,
Yes.
and they made it there.
So I would go back to kind of the concept of letting them come to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have respect for the culture of baseball.
Right.
And if they have their superstitions that they've done for a very long time, I'm not coming in there and be like, hey, you need to change this.
Yeah.
Because that might have some disastrous impacts of their performance, right? And my job is to help them perform as best as they can. Now, I might ask them some curious questions about the things that they're doing if I notice some of that stuff. If they come to me, we might have a conversation for it. But I think I would look at it from a lens of how can I help redirect some of this control so that they understand that it's the work that they're doing. It's their focus. It's their autonomy that's putting them in that position. It's not this process, not that routine.
Right. So that's a lot of the work that's kind of happening, in the off season and just kind of building those skills and that confidence and that agency and figuring out routines that are going to be sustainable and over the course of the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the sustainability is such a key part, right? Just like we talked about some of the negative self-talk, right?
Yeah.
I was very careful in saying like, I'm okay with it, but oftentimes that's not the most sustainable thing, right? So it might work in the moment. It might be productive in the moment, but we have to be very careful because if that becomes now a habit or that now becomes a routine, now it might play into the sustainability and be something that kind of wears on them.
I think we know as folks who have studied sports psychology, we're kind of aware of the data. In elite sports, there's a high prevalence of mental health issues.
Yes.
Like when I think about the athletes who actually struggle with mental health issues, how many of those folks kind of fall into this more kind of fear-based motivation versus positive psychology, positive psychological functioning. Thing. Yeah.
I think it's a reminder that when you're working with like the top 1% of any sort of field, you're talking about the extremes.
Right.
And those extremes have probably led to a lot of good results. But there can be a cost to that too. And that might come across, or that might be the mental health issues that they face. And I think that's a really interesting conversation, especially when we look at the general population, because they look at those extreme performers, those top 1%, and they say, I want that. I want the positive aspects of that. And they don't necessarily think about the cost that comes along with it. Even if it's not maybe mental health issues, they might not be looking at the amount of hours that they've sacrificed or, the family time that they've sacrificed. And so, again, my mind goes to being very clear on your purpose, being very clear on your values, and understanding that those might not match up with the very top 1%, who have done so much to get themselves to that point. But it's very real. Like these are people at the very extreme. And so to me, it makes sense why you might see some like very real and very serious issues with that too.
I always come back to this question. Can you go down this performance trajectory and be in that top 1% while also maintaining really high levels of mental, physical, and emotional well-being and health? Because to get to that place, to your point, like you have to be extreme in how you approach life and your training, which a lot of the other things end up falling to the wayside.
Yes. I think about that question a lot.
I know.
I'm fascinated by it.
I know, me too.
Because I would love for the answer to be, yes, you can be the best of the best and also be this well-rounded individual that's taking care of all these different spheres. And we don't have a lot of examples of that. Like I think anyone can think of maybe the best and the best of any field, and just off of the top of their head also think of different issues that they've dealt with
Demons are driving.
Whether it's, like,
I know.
families falling apart,
Yeah.
or, maybe not being the nicest person, or dealing with certain addictions, or whatever it is. And so I'm fascinated by that because I'm very mindful that, like, I haven't been in, like, Kobe's shoes. I haven't been in, like, Tom Brady's shoes, Michael Jordan's shoes. And so I can't bring a bias to say, no, you can be this well-rounded individual and also achieve all these incredible goals that you're trying to achieve on a daily basis. That's a bias that I'm putting onto a player that I'm working with. And so I have to be very careful and make sure that I'm asking them what they're trying to achieve. And I'm supporting them with my skills to achieve those goals. But I think it's fascinating because I think the hope that could be true can sometimes get in the way of that work.
I was supporting an athlete who was really struggling with their sleep.
Yeah.
And, found out through working with him that he had, what I would classify as a very serious video game addiction. But was still playing extremely high level baseball. I mean, was literally the best in the league in his position.
Yeah.
When he got his video game addiction addressed, his game fell apart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating just from, like, kind of zooming out as a clinical perspective, but it's I think to your point, like, it's very delicate. It's very fragile what holds high performance in place.
Yes. And I think it's a reminder to, like we spoke about the ARs, to do that work, to gain that awareness and clarity, to not just jump in immediately. Right? In my position as a coach to these performers, I want to be someone that works with them side by side. I try to be very careful to make sure that I'm not taking that mindset of there's something to fix. If they're asking me for support to fix something, I will definitely help them. But I am careful so that I don't approach with this mindset of, oh, that's what I need to fix, or that's what I need to change, because you don't necessarily know the consequences of that, right? Someone comes to you and is complaining about sleep. It's easy to just hone in of, like, okay, we need to fix the sleep. Video games is getting in the way.
It's never that simple.
It's never that simple, right? It's incredible how delicate that balance is. Again, my mind goes to, well, what are the stated goals of that athlete? Do they want to continue playing at that high level, or do they care more at that moment to get their sleep under control or to have that more well-rounded life? And if that's the case, then you can help them get there, but they have to understand that, okay, my performance might actually dip, or they might ask you, which, I don't know, with the clinical background, like, how much you can do, but
I would be referring them to a clinical psychologist.
Right.
Yeah.
But
which I did for the addiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they want to stay at that level of performance, they might have to make some tough decisions about what that means for their lifestyle or the kind of the rest of their life.
I think his fear was that he could not play baseball. It was such a stress reliever for him that he would not be able to play baseball at that level without it.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where it was interfering with the relationship with his spouse, had a kid. There was other things that it was starting to affect.
Yeah.
That he recognized that and wanted to get help, but he was so afraid that if he cut this out of his life, he wasn't going to be able to be the player that he was.
Yeah, and that's why it's can make our job so fascinating. Because if you just cut that out immediately, that fear will probably come true. Right? Because he's been using it.
Yeah.
So what are ways that maybe you can address that fear, and what are ways that you can help build him that belief that he can still succeed in that arena without these certain habits or these certain behaviors? And there's no easy answers for that. as much as we would like there to
I
be.
know. It's like, just swap out the video games for something else. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
It's not always that easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit and center around visualization. I think this is a technique that's used in sports psychology and sports performance a ton. Would love to know just kind of how you think about it and just ways that you've incorporated it in your environment.
We did an exercise as a team where I asked guys to close their eyes and visualize that they're at the end of the season. And they're in their off-season home. They're relaxing with family, maybe by a bonfire, maybe the steak is cooking, doing real-life things that they don't get to do during a baseball season. And I asked them to visualize the feeling that they had knowing that they accomplished everything they wanted to in that season. So whether that's individual statistics or, whatever accomplishments, like, ground yourself in that feeling of like, you did it. And once they visualize that, I wanted to bring back, or like time travel back to that current moment, bring that feeling of success and accomplishment with them. And now imagine, how do you go about your daily process knowing that it's all going to work out? I'll fully admit, I don't know the research on this, but I wanted them to have a perspective of, would I do anything differently about my process? Would I go about it differently? Would I treat people differently? Would I treat myself differently if I knew it was all going to work out? Now, we don't have that assurance. We don't have that guarantee. We don't have that certainty. But if you handle yourself as if it will, it might, right? Or it might just make that journey a little bit more fun, a little bit more enjoyable as you go through it. And so that's one specific way that we used visualization. And I thought it was powerful. Like I saw a little bit of shift in the guys where, because they're so hyper aware, because they've learned so well to like judge of, is this good or is this bad? It's easy to let some doubt creep in and maybe not have that full belief in your process. But that was just one tool to just have that experiment, a little tiny experiment of, what if I had that full belief in it? What if I had that full confidence in it? What would that look like?
That everything that I'm doing today is going to set me on a path where at the end of this thing, like, I'm going to be in a good spot.
Yes.
And it's
and we know the way that life works, that I think it's Steve Jobs has that quote about connecting the dots. You can only connect the dots when you look back.
Oh, yeah.
And we do that. Like, we go through life, and when we look back, we put on those rosy glasses and everything seems okay, right?
Right.
And so if we know that to be the case, can we bring elements of that to the present moment, and instead of putting that incredible amount of pressure or worry or anxiety that we carry, reassure ourselves that you're going to make it okay.
Right.
Not because it's just magically going to happen, but because you have the ability to figure it out. You have the control to work a process or take actions that will make the most of it or make the best of it. And so bring that to your present moment.
I love that. Just going through that myself as you're laying it out, like, I got such good feelings, of like, all right, this is actually kind of what I'm working toward. It's like a feeling of like contentment and satisfaction, like knowing that I left no stone unturned. I did everything that I could every single day to like earn that moment of sitting around the bonfire. Yeah. And that they still have like a lot of time left to kind of earn that moment. And are what you're doing today, is that setting you up to kind of be satisfied and content. Yeah. Down
and
the road.
I think
I love it.
There's a element of remembering that you have control to bring that element of joy and satisfaction and contentment to the present moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, we postpone,
gratitude.
the gratitude. We postpone so much of that, of when I accomplish these things,
Yeah.
I'm going to feel that way. And
Yep.
some of that visualization was actually spurned by a conversation that I was having with two of our players in spring training over breakfast, where it's like, we were just talking about how crazy it is, how quickly those feelings go away. Like, say you have this incredible baseball season and set these milestones for home runs hit and RBIs and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you get to off season and a week goes by and you're like, all right, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
What's the next step, right? And fully acknowledging that's part of what helps make them great.
Right.
But learning to like enjoy those moments, those wins and things like that. And
Hold on to those good feelings.
yes,
Because they can propel you.
but also bringing it to the present moment.
Yeah.
And that's also a discussion of like small wins and learning how to appreciate small wins and how important they are, and how so many high performers like almost actively need to learn that because they're constantly pushing.
For sure. Yeah.
But how do you
and other
fuel
people are
yourself?
defining what
Yes.
it means to actually be successful, whereas other people's definition is not as much of a concern, or shouldn't be. It's about, all right, how are you actually looking at success?
Yes.
Given the demands, constraints, all the things that are going on in your individual situation.
What do those wins look like for
Yeah.
you? And then that can help build that momentum.
Right.
One little exercise that I did with one of our athletes that was struggling, he wasn't hitting well. And obviously the longer he didn't hit well, the more pressure he put on getting that hit. And that's baseball.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we did was define what else he can do to impact the game, because a lot of the pressure that he was putting on himself was, again, the love of teammates. He's like, well, I want to help the team win. I'm like, awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
You do realize you help the team win in other ways besides just getting hits. So his task was impact the game positively in 3 ways every single day, and hits don't count.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a defensive play?
Yeah.
Is it a conversation with a player? Maybe he comes back from his at-bat and tells the next guy what he sees.
Yep.
Or maybe it's just encouraging another teammate.
Yep.
Maybe it's a play on the base paths.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, it's redefining what wins look like. It's redefining what success looks like. Because if he's then able to walk away from that day saying, I did 3 things to impact this team, I did 3 things to help this team win, he's putting himself in a better state, in a better position to get the thing that I know he really wants, is the hits, right?
Yeah.
And the nuance here is so important, because the hits are important. If he continues not
But
hitting,
focusing on hitting and the hits is not going to get you more
yes,
hits.
but also you can't tell him that it's not important, because if he doesn't get hits, he's going to get optioned.
I know.
Or he's going to get released, or his career's going to be over. So it's like, yes, we fully acknowledge getting those hits are important, but having them understand that there's different paths to get there, right? And shifting that focus and continuously putting themselves in a position of like, hey, if you were getting those hits, you probably don't need to be thinking about this stuff, and that's fine, but let's give you something else to focus on so that eventually those hits will come.
I think it's a good moment to just pause too for like parents who have kids who are playing sports. Like, so many of these principles apply just freaking little league, because they have a lot of the same emotions. I think my daughter plays high school softball and plays club softball. She's a very good player, but she had like a real hitting drought this season, where she just could not, and I was just like, just focus on contact.
Yeah.
Like that's, but I was like, what are the other ways that you can impact the game? And I was like, just literally lean into those as hard as you can. Don't even worry about the hitting. And, it didn't immediately resolve itself, but she got back on track, but her anxiety levels, when she shifted her focus, it was night and day.
Yeah.
And so I think for just parents who have kids playing sports in high school and middle school, they're going to have a lot of these same emotions, and focusing on the thing is probably not,
well, it's
the best approach.
It's like almost asking them, like, what else did you learn today?
Yeah.
Or like, what else did you focus on today? Or again, coming back to that idea of an AAR, what are a couple wins that you had today that don't have to do with hitting, right? And by asking those questions, you're helping them shift their perspective. You're helping them redirect their focus so they're not all consumed by the fact that they're not hitting. They're taking a look at all those things. So that's the power of, beautiful, smart questions.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Whoop, because we've just launched something that is going to shift how we all understand aging. It's part of the new 5.0 and MG, and it's called Healthspan. It gives you a real, measurable view of how quickly or slowly your body is aging. Not in theory, but through data that connects directly to your daily behaviors. What's been the most compelling for me is how responsive the metric is. My biological age is currently tracking more than a decade below my chronological age. I can see almost in real time what is contributing to that. Things like sleep consistency, my VO2 max, time in various zones, strength training minutes. When those are dialed in, my number slows. And when they're off, it accelerates. It's that sensitive. We built Healthspan into the 5.0 to give people a clear view of what's really impacting their long-term health. Because once you can see it, you can change it. If you want to try Healthspan, visit join.whoop.com/science where you can get 1 month for free.
So what are some of the in-game on-demand strategies, tools that guys are using? You mentioned some breath work,
Yep.
Kind of mini moments of mindfulness. Are there any kind of techniques that you've been like, yeah, this really works?
Yeah.
And what are you trying to achieve in those moments generally?
Yes. I think that's a great question because I think that's what helps people build out that routine or that strategy. So what we're trying to do is be as present as possible in that moment and making sure that our mind is on the right thing at the right time. So those are the goals. Mm-hmm. Now, what it looks like will be different, but it'll have elements of, breathing is a great tool to use because we know the body influences the mind and the mind influences the body. And so, again, that's like a physiological tool that you can use to either help calm the mind down or ramp the mind up.
Right. So you think using breath to change your state?
Yes. Yep. That's something that can be used. Figure out cues. So words or phrases that work for you in terms of bringing your focus to where you want it to be. Again, it can be one word. It can be a motto.
And now the idea is that the word creates some sort of physical kind of shift.
It can be physical shift, but it can also be like a mental mindset shift, right? So if I'm finding myself caring about, the outcome of an at-bat, I might use that cue to refocus on the process of what do I need to do to make a good swing decision.
So hands or you might say
yes.
a word that is taking your focus off of I gotta get on base.
Yes.
To all right, let me just focus on my hands or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I always push our athletes to jot those down because I feel like they're tools in a tool belt, and maybe the effectiveness of a particular cue might go away for a while. Totally fine. But I also don't want that to be the only tool that you have in your tool belt. So do you have a couple other cues, maybe something that you used 2 weeks ago that you've written down, so now you can reference and be like, let me try this again, right? So having a couple of those.
But the overarching goal generally is to reduce anxiety, not so you don't want the athlete thinking about what's going to happen or what just happened. You want them truly in the moment.
Yes.
So these are techniques that help individuals stay in the moment.
Yes. Present and focused and focused on the right things.
Yeah.
Because you can obviously be focused on the wrong things, and that's going to pull away.
So what you're doing kind of as an infielder versus what you're doing at bat, obviously different cues, right? Different scenarios, different demands mentally and physically. Yeah.
And the other things to be more present can involve physical touch.
Yep.
Right. So, if you're an infielder, just maybe touching the dirt is part of your routine of staying in that moment and present.
Right.
And if you're thinking about the feeling of dirt on your hands, you're probably not thinking about the last play that you made.
Right.
You probably, if you watch a baseball game, you see a lot of guys either staring at a spot on their bat or maybe looking out, looking out somewhere, and they're using that sight to ground themselves in the present, right? Pay attention to the details that they're seeing on the bat. And it brings their mind to that moment as opposed to maybe the consequences or the last pitch that just happened, things like that.
Yeah, so that's probably like a work in progress, like constantly for players, or I keep using that word, but just as a way to, just because it's dynamic and just scenarios change, the complexion of the season changes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Marlins specifically started out as quite an underdog, right?
Yeah.
In the season. Like, like
we had very low expectations.
Yeah, it was not great. But you're close to making, I mean, you're in contention, right? So you're in the hunt, which is phenomenal. So maybe just zoom out. We've been talking a lot about just individual kind of tools and techniques and just how to think about performance from an individual lens. If we zoom out and think about a team, how do you kind of create a culture of belief when you've got everyone in the media and, family and friends like, gosh, you're going to suck this year. Like, how do you get teams like focused on the stuff that matters?
I think a superpower of this team, actually there's two. One, I think we referenced it already, but they've embraced developing at the highest level. They want to learn. And I think that helps them stay very present in the moment. They truly take one game at a time. Now we slip up as a team.
Yeah, of course.
But
it's a long ass season.
It's so long. It's so long.
162 games. It's wild.
It is wild. And it's power to them to go through that. But they've embraced this culture of learning, continuous learning. And what that looks like is taking one game at a time, where it's like, how can we be the best today? And when today happens, we learn from it. We apply those things in the work that we do leading up. And then we approach that next game. And we do that over and over again. And I think you see that in the results of this team. At one point, we were 16 games under 500. But we had the same process and approach then. Then we eventually got to a point where we hit 500. And
I mean, that is outcome. That is process-driven type of thinking.
Yes, it is. Where it's
well done.
While we were going through that process, the guys did a phenomenal job of. They weren't really looking at the scores. Yeah, they weren't really checking in of like where we're at. It was just, well, whether we're 16 games under 500 or 16 games over 500, we're gonna come in today and we're gonna see how can we be our best today as hitters. How can we make sure we knock out the starting pitcher as quickly as possible? As pitchers, how can we dominate these hitters as much as we can? And that's the focus every single day. And if you come to a game and you watch the guys work in pregame, you can see they're working hard. They're attacking weaknesses. They're getting better at their strengths. And by applying that every single day, they're learning machines. And it's impossible. I believe it's impossible not to have some sort of success when that's the approach that they take. So that's the first superpower.
I love that.
The second one is these guys genuinely love each other. We have such...
Everybody loves everybody.
But like genuinely, like we have no bad apples. Everyone gets along. And if you look at our dugout,
it makes such a difference.
When guys are celebrating a home run or a pitcher comes in after a great outing, like you can see it, which is so cool.
We're so damn pumped.
Yes, like you can see how pumped they are for teammates. Like our bullpen, when they come in, they're not caring about their stats. They care so much to not let that runner score for the previous pitcher. And I think that's incredible, right? It taps into that higher purpose where I'm not just doing this for myself.
It says a lot about the leadership on your team.
Yes.
I think it's rare.
It is. And it's funny when you hear, and we're trying to become a championship level team. That's the goal of course. Any team that comes in wants to win the World Series.
There's a way to get there though.
Yes, there is. And when you hear stories about Super Bowl winning teams, World Series winning teams, to me, the theme that I see is that the clubhouse is incredibly tight. Yeah. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean like everyone gets along perfectly. It doesn't mean that like everyone's best friends. But there is a mutual respect. There is a joy that comes in of like, I'm looking forward to walking into that clubhouse and spending time with those guys. And especially over a 162 game season, you need that, right? You need to know that you can step out on that field, give your best, not know what the outcome is going to be. And if it's not a great outcome, you're going to walk into that clubhouse and no one is going to look down on you. No one is going to say, why did you do this? How did you let that happen? If anything, they're going to support you. They're going to pump you up and make sure that you're going back out there and doing what you do best. And to me, that's crucial. Because can you imagine pushing yourself to the limit, not doing the way, like things not going the way that you plan, and then you have to worry about what are coaches going to say? What are players going to say? What are my teammates going to say?
Huge cognitive load.
Incredible. And we talk about the separation and maintaining your identities. Like, to me, that's why you hear coaches preach culture so much. And obviously, everyone's trying to figure out like the secret to success of having that great culture. But when you do have that great culture and you do have a clubhouse that cares about each other, you're reducing that cognitive load. You're reducing that stress of like, hey, at the very least, I know everyone's got my back. And so I can go out there and truly lay it out on the line, knowing that no matter what happens, I'm still supported.
And that culture is made possible because what is underpinning it is this idea of continuous learning and development. Like, you know that every single person is trying to do their very best to develop as an individual for the
There's a huge amount of trust. Right? So why would I get mad at this person? Because I've seen them work. I've seen how much hard work they've put forward, right? And I know that they just tried their best. And so they come back in and I'm supporting them because you have that trust. You have that mutual respect. And it creates this phenomenal positive feedback loop.
I think in a sport like baseball where you have 162 games in the regular season, like I had my team had a mantra, and it was the score is 0-0. And it's this idea that we're never up, we're never down. Like, we're literally just trying to live our values as hard as we can every single moment. You know, it's like how you show up every single day and just try to be the very best version of yourself. For yourself as well as for the team. And that means that you're not thinking about the scoreboard. You're not thinking about your record. Like, none of that really matters. Right? If you are absolutely focused on these principles of learning and development.
It's having that inner scoreboard for yourself.
Totally.
It's knowing what you are pursuing.
And that level of accountability.
Yes, as an individual and as a team. I think of Nick Saban as an example of like one of the best coaches ever.
Right?
Yes. That dynasty. And I remember people or fans or seeing news stories where they're like, how can he be so mad when they're up by 60 points against this opponent? And it's because they have an inner scoreboard. It's not about the results that like the fans are seeing. He's looking at it of, are we playing to our potential or are we not? And there are times where that team has lost and the noise is incredible. And he's up there on the podium talking about what a great job they did and how proud he is. And then there's times where they won by an incredible amount and like the fans are so happy and he's so disappointed because he knows that they didn't play to their potential. And so that's what I see elements of that with our team where it's like, it's not the record. It's, do we know that we are playing to our potential as a team? We are on a path to discovering what's the best that we can be. And it's not tied to any sort of specific, results or certain record. We don't have a certain record. We just know that if we compete to the best of our ability, if we learn as much as we can, and if we become or push against that limit of being the best team that we can be, no matter what happens, we can walk away from the season with our head held high, saying we laid it all out on the line. And I think that's the goal. And as long as you keep doing that, it's going to put you in a pretty good position.
Yeah,
good things will come and it will put you in a good position.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard because of all the pressures. It's hard to stay that path, but it sounds like you're doing it.
Yeah,
and
it is really hard to say that
for themselves. I know
it's easy to talk about this and make it seem like it's all roses, but
there's a lot of friction that comes with trying to really stay true to that process.
Yes, and it takes obviously it takes a village, right? It takes coaches reminding players reminding each other, players reminding coaches,
front office
having that support, right? But the more you can fill that whole environment, that whole culture of, these are the steps that we take, these are the values that we're about, this is our purpose, then it's easier to weather those storms and the ups and downs that come along with the season.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Nick Saban and trap games, and that's why, like, if you think about like Nick Saban's career, like the amount of times that his team underperformed, count on one hand, and that's like, when I was coaching, that's very much like what I thought, about in terms of like our conference games. Like we could beat a team by 8 goals, but I'd be so pissed because I know that we underperformed. And that's why like the score is 0-0, right? Like if, it doesn't matter if you're up or down really, are you actually playing to your potential? Because there's going to be just teams who are more talented than you.
Yes.
So you can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
But are you actually playing to your potential, right?
Yeah.
Like, are you mentally, physically, and prepared? Did you prepare mentally, physically, and emotionally the same for the team that is 75th in the country versus the team that's number 1? To me, that is how you win year after year after year after year, right? Is you're not, there's no distinguishing between, opponent 1 and opponent 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because we're trying to play to our potential every time we step on the field. And that was, I think, the beauty of Nick Saban's coaching philosophy.
Yes.
Which allowed him to have such incredible levels of success.
Yes. Human nature, like, we will become complacent if we don't have a structure in place.
I mean, our brain, that's our default brain. We want to be comfortable. We want
the easiest path, right?
It's metabolically less expensive.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so what great coaches and what great teams and what great players do is make the path of least resistance the one to high performance. But that takes so much work, right? But someone like Nick Saban had figured that out at Alabama. And it's so cool to see that in action. So, for example,
you have an infrastructure that made that possible, by being pissed when they won games and, and being happy when they performed to their potential when they lost games, and just totally ignoring the noise that around the team.
Yeah. And what was fascinating to me is like he's getting recruits that know that they're going to be like third stringers for a while.
Right.
But they're willing to do that and forego another top 5 team where they'd be a starter right away. And there's elements of belief and purpose, right? They know that that's probably going to prepare them for the NFL as best as possible and things like that. But the buy-in there, the idea of the complacency, I think, is fascinating, and it makes me think of some of our players that might have an 0 for 4 night. And they're not happy, but they're satisfied with their effort and their process on that day.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
They know that they did everything in their control, and they really wouldn't change a whole lot despite what that 0 for 4 shows. They hit the ball hard 4 times. They were happy with they know that they made the right swing decisions. And so a fan might look at it and be like, he's 0 for 4. That's terrible. He must be so unhappy. It's like, no, he might be happier than on a day where he went 2 for 4, but he knows those 2 hits.
Those are crappy hits.
Or he got lucky. Right? And he knows that's not replicable. Yeah. And he can't be consistent with that. And so that's that sort of inner scoreboard, that inner standard that helps them withstand 162, helps them withstand up and down of results because they're just looking at it differently. And so many things we've talked about is like helping you look at it the same way that player that goes 0 for 4 but is able to walk away with their head held high,
Right.
applying that to your own life so that you're able to do that yourself.
Final question.
Oh boy.
I know. And this kind of really hits on the kind of soul part of the podcast, but
Yeah.
can't wait to hear your perspective, just given just all your work with humans. But what does it mean to be human?
That's a big question.
I know.
I think for me, the idea of being a human is going through life, experiencing all the ups and downs, and continuously trying your best is to be human. Like, there's going to be incredible painful moments. There's going to be incredibly joyful moments. But it's just keep moving forward, learning from those things, applying to them. That's the element of like continuously trying to be your best. But when I think of like what it means to be a human, it's experiencing life in the best way possible, and whatever that means for you.
It's beautiful. Yeah.